welcome back to Frankly Speaking. I'm your host, Frank. Let's call this episode 28 of the Integralist Chronicles. All right, guys. I've taken quite a bit of a break from podcasts. It's been about 4 or 5 months since I've done a cast, I think, right around there. Just kind of stepping away from the spotlight a little bit, I guess. This channel has never been about me personally. It's been about my ideas, at least. My pursuit of truth is at least as best that I can see it and explain it. I don't have the greatest gifts in the world. Um, and so, you know, my ideas are rough and I'm kind of a blue collar type thinker and I have to work through things in my mind oftentimes and sometimes the way I talk and I think it's probably part of my upbringing, my blue collar or peasant class upbringing without a high level of education or intellectual curiosity from my youth. That I think the way things form in my mind is a little bit slow. But I think the one gift God has given me is a certain sense of moral fortitude. And it's that moral fortitude that keeps me going and driving and coming back and always seeking truth, at least to the best of my ability and how God has revealed it to me. And I decided to take a break and just step away for a while. In many ways, the political, what do you want to call it, dialogue in America is extremely frustrating to me at this point in history because I seem to be a minority of a minority, right? As someone who describes himself as a Catholic integralist, somebody that believes that the West cannot continue on without the Catholic Church, the faith, the sacramental life at the center of our civilization and our nations. It's frustrating to kind of watch all of this fall apart and we kind of regurgitate all these stupid same political ideas that never seem to work at the end of the day. And we're repeating the same mistakes as a country, nation, and culture over and over again. And listen, I get it. America was founded as a Protestant nation, and I've been watching these Protestants over on X, basically try and shame Catholics into sort of this patriotic sort of a guilt trip to well, honor your forefathers because the American founding fathers, they were all Protestants, and you're betraying the founding fathers of America if you don't convert to Protestantism. Come on, guys, that's hilarious. Well, my responses to that is, well, you can have it. You can have it. Because what has 80 years of American hegemony throughout the globe given us? Gay marriage, right? Transgenderism, abortion, contraception, sterilization of women, right? Feminism, the demasculating of the patriarchy. I mean, go down the list of the nuttiness that the West has become. We're on the verge of a civilizational collapse, and you guys still want to take credit for what again? What, for facilitating the collapse? Because Protestantism always leads to this kind of sort of cultural suicide wherever it's been tried. Yeah, there's a guy on X. His name is what's his name? Zoom or something. Oh gosh, I don't remember his name now. But he's a big evangelical guy, Presbyterian guy online who defends his no, he's not evangelical. He's Presbyterian. He doesn't like the evangelicals because he says they're not Protestants. It's very interesting. He's got a very interesting line of thinking, right? He actually thinks Catholics are more Christian than the evangelicals are, which is fascinating to me, right? It's a different take, right? Because he believes that institutionalized religion is what's very important, and the evangelicals have broken away from that. And so he doesn't consider the evangelicals to be true Protestants or true Christians for that matter, but he considers Catholics to be true Christians. What's his name now? I forget his name now. But anyways, what was his point here? Yeah, he brought up the idea that, well, when you look at the history of Protestantism, especially in homogenous Protestant nations, They do all these great achievements, particularly economic achievements, financial achievements. But he lives, kind of gives a little caveat there. Say, yeah, but sometimes these Protestant nations do fall into liberalism. Sometimes, right? But look at all these great accomplishments that they've done through finance and trade and arts and all this other stuff that he praises the Protestant countries for. And of course, the art thing, let's set aside. Protestant art, especially the iconoclasm they pushed, just made some ugly cultures and architecture and artwork and all that stuff. It's just ugly, but ugly to me. But let's that aside. The idea that Protestant nations sometimes liberalize. Well, my question to this gentleman is, well, what Protestant nation hasn't ever liberalized? Every Protestant nation I know off the top of my head is liberalized. Go north of the Protestant Reformation national line. The Netherlands, Scandinavian nations, England, all of its offshoots, Canada, America, New Zealand, Australia. Where doesn't Protestantism ever liberalize? Especially the Anglo-Protestant nations, right? They all, not only do they liberalize, they turn radically left. All of them have. Why is that? Why is that? I don't know. Maybe it has something to do with subjective morality through uh, individual interpretations of Scripture, aka everybody proclaims themselves their own saviors and gods in Protestantism, because that's what sola Scriptura does, right? I think that's just an interesting take, and I think it's absolutely clueless, man. And it's one of the reasons why in the American society we're struggling so much, especially as we continue to diversify, especially with the flood of immigration that's happened from non-European nations over the past 20, 30, 40 years. We're kind of some way starting to look like Rwanda, where we got all these tribes competing and fighting with each other. Because again, the abstract constitution of the American founding, you know, listen, I'll give Protestantism this much credit, right? The founders understood that pluralism was going to be a problem and that a nation without morality was going to be a problem. Now, they helped set up the nation without morality because Protestantism, at its very origins, is destructive, and they were all Protestants, right? These contradictions. But they recognized that to a certain degree, cultural hegemony was very important. Well, we don't have cultural hegemony anymore, right? We've kind of, you know, listen, as long as America was this kind of, European mashup with similar values, it could work, right? I think to a certain extent, a limited extent, Protestants and Catholics could kind of coexist temporarily. But the moment the morality begins to break down because you have no moral arbiter of truth. You've left an open-ended moral system. It's only inevitable. You combine that with the flood of mass immigration and sort of the cultures all clashing with one another. Listen, this is what we have. This is what we have post World War II. I think we can't forget that. And I think, as Americans, we're struggling here. And this is why, for my friends on the political right, in many ways, they've tried to make America itself, a nation, into sort of a deity, right? And it's interesting because that American deity, right, that we were all raised on, the mythos of American exceptionalism, right? Manifest destiny, the last best hope for mankind. If freedom dies here, we will suffer through 1,000 years of darkness, as Ronald Reagan famously proclaimed in his Goldwater speech. I believe that was in 69, right? Right around there. And yet, and yet, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, good friend of mine, who's telling me how this crisis right now in Washington with the shutdown of the government is leading to some uncomfortable truths like cutting the Obamacare, premiums for a lot of lower class people. Social Security, of course, is a massive burden on the federal government as the national debt continues to go up and all this other stuff, right? And the burden is now being continually being shifted on the lower classes in America as we have this great disparity of wealth. Inflation now is crushing the middle class. We know that. And the answer for the Republican Party, the fiscal hawks, is cut, 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 cut. We can't afford it. Okay, fine, but you've also have facilitated a system over the past 80 years where you've made people dependent on these programs. You've killed local communities. You've killed off the church that used to have a lot of social functions. You've destroyed the family. You threw them into an economic usury system that has put them in perpetual debt. You've told them, hey, go out there, work hard, right? Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. In America, we have this fluid class system where everybody can become rich at some point. But then after they work hard, do what they do, go to college, start business, you inflate the money on them starting in 1971, right? Where you start printing money. So all the idea of Americans working hard to make it is crushed by government policies of printing money because you're killing the value of the dollar. So what's the whole idea of, well, you got to work hard in America to make it, right? You can't be lazy because then if you go to government, you're going to steal from your neighbor, and that makes you a real piece of dirtbag, right? Because you can't steal from your neighbors. In America, we all work hard, right? We have individual liberty, and it's up to us to take care of ourselves. And then people work hard and they inflate the money and they crush that idea. And so we have all sorts of these contradictions in the American system that's frustrating. And sort of an American cultural and global hegemony that we've spread all over the world over the past 80 years. And I keep asking myself, what good has that done? What good has that done? American global hegemony, right? We see ourselves as again, American exceptionalism, right? A kind of a superior nation, superior race of people based upon this kind of mythos of hard work, right? And the ability to acquire and make capital, to be ingenuitive because we create lots of products. We create lots of economic prosperity, right? We have great technological innovations, and a lot of that is true, but it's also in many ways a facade. I mean, America's economic prosperity, let's call it, it's been impressive. I won't deny that, but it's also had the advantage of having massive amounts of natural resources. It's one of the reasons why America can do a lot of things that it can that other nations can't do. That's what World War II was about in many ways that nobody wants to acknowledge. It was the global powers, mainly the colonial empires of that time that were trying to protect their own resources. The British had an empire, the Americans had an empire, the French had an empire, and the Soviets had all kinds of resources. What did the three Axis powers have? They didn't have much in regards to natural resources. This is why they struggled in that war. I mean, I'm just giving you a small example of what it means at the end of the day. And so when we look at American society today, again, going back to this conversation with a friend of mine, he's like, well, Frank, listen, we got to cut. The national deficit's out of control. We're out of money. We're bankrupt. We just have to cut all these programs. And I said, well, wait a minute. Wait. You've raised 2 and 3 generations of people on these programs. Again, they got no families. We sterilized our women. There's nowhere for grandma and grandpa to go because we told their kids, the few kids they did have, that they're free and independent. There's no church in place anymore. 14th Amendment destroyed the state church. Now, I have my issues with the idea of the state church, but still, we used to have charities in this country. Now, yeah, we got private charities. Yeah, whatever that means. They're all corrupt. At least a lot of them are. How do you expect people to survive now in the system when you haven't given them the opportunity to really be independent? You've told them make a lot of money. Go out there and make the money, and then you inflated the money on them, and now you're telling them, well, you're asked out. You're asked out. That ain't exactly right either. And I said, listen, Social Security, right? I understand it's a fiscal burden, without a doubt. And same with healthcare. But why can't we just fix the problems? I said. I mean, why can't we just, again, we're Americans, right? We built the greatest nation in the history of the world, the greatest economic empire we've ever seen, a global empire. We put a man on the moon. We've got all this great stuff that we've done as Americans. but we can't do something as simple as fix a retirement plan for retirees and fix a healthcare system that's a little bit more fair and balanced, where the market forces in healthcare have been completely distorted. I said, why can't we fix this as Americans? He says, well, Frank, we're nothing but a socialist nation now. And we're just trying to manage this thing now at this point. I said, really? That's that's what we have now? We're all out of ideas as Americans, you know? And I asked myself, so how does this work? How does this cognitive dissonance on the right actually work? On the one hand, since World War II, we were the great global empire, the greatest in the history of the world, freedom, liberty, economic prosperity, a way of life, America being that steam engine of economics throughout the world, as Rush Limbaugh used to say. On the other hand, we can't fix healthcare and Social Security. And we're telling seniors, too bad, you're screwed. Or if we haven't cut them off yet, we make them feel guilty for being a burden on the system. That's what we do with senior citizens. And what did these senior citizens do wrong other than have the money jacked from their paychecks every single week from birth to death? We tell them, no, we've taken your money, we've blown it in a bunch of other places that are really irrelevant now in retrospect, but we still can't give it back to you. I said, why can't we privatize Social Security? I said, I mean, that's the answer. It's really not hard to fix Social Security. Let's privatize it now. I mean, even if you took, right? I get it. We got a national deficit, but if we did some budgeting gimmicks and you took $10,000 for every new child born in this country and stick it in the S&P 500, guess what? That's going to be millions of dollars by the time that kid turns 62, 65, whatever age you want to pick. But we won't do that. Why? Why? He says, well, Frank, we don't have the political capital to do that anymore. Nobody has the will and the desire. And I said, then what's the whole point of this? And again, you're telling me there's no desire to fix healthcare. There's no desire to fix the Social Security system. I would first suggest nobody wants to fix it because it's all corrupt and the corrupt people that benefit from it like it. But again, we're Americans. We can do whatever we want, right? I mean, what are we supposed to do at this point? What are we supposed to do with this at this point? When in fact, when in fact, the Republicans and conservatives tell me we don't have the political capital now, or probably ever will ever again, to fix Social Security and Medicare because we don't have the political capital. Oh, but why is it that the Democrats, when they were in power just a few years ago, had the political capital to ram Obamacare and gay marriage down our throats? They had the political capital for that, really? But the Republicans never have the political capital to fix healthcare and Social Security? It's a joke, guys. It's a joke. It's a uniparty system. And they have to manipulate the masses of Americans. First, on one hand, by giving us a utopian fairy tale mythos of what the country was in the past. But then when it comes to reality, the country is actually broken, hopeless, and worthless. The cognitive dissonance of the right never ceases to amaze me. Here we are, the greatest nation in the history of the world, and we can't fix Social Security and Medicare, two budgeting gimmicks. That's all it really is fixing the budget for these things. Sure, I get it. It's much more difficult than that because there's a lot of corrupt people collecting on these things. And you're going to have to close down the gravy train. I understand that. And Washington doesn't want to do that because it's run by a bunch of lobbyists. But don't tell me, oh, we're America, we're number one, we're the greatest, manifest destiny, best, last, best hope for mankind, and then tell me we can't fix two government programs. Don't tell me that. It's a joke. You guys aren't even serious anymore. Jeez, man. And suffice it to say, this is why I dropped out of American politics now over a dozen years ago now, right? I stopped calling myself a conservative back in 2013. I saw all of this. It was all becoming much clearer to me. And I went into a deep dive of history, right? Studying Christendom, French Revolution, World War I, World War II, right? All these ideas. And they just had much better ideas than what we have today. They simply had much better ideas. And they didn't give their people guilt trips. Yes, it was a tough world. It wasn't a perfect world, but guess what? It's always a tough world. It's always a brutal world. But at least they had basic manners to understand that governance matters and is designed for the people, not for the oligarchs that now control the system. And see, isn't this the problem with the political right? They still don't want to admit that democracy and capitalism ultimately leads to plutocracy. They won't ever admit that, ever, ever. They won't do it. They won't do it because it kills the mythos that we all have to believe in this nation. My solutions are simple. Fix the problems. Fix the damn problems. Start with Social Security. I think it's the easiest fix. I understand healthcare is a little bit more complicated, but we can start with Social Security, privatize. Oh, but we got partisans. We don't got the votes. Well, screw your democracy then. Screw your republic. If we're going to continue to go down this path of lies and destruction and making senior citizens feel guilt over nothing more than getting their own money back that they worked hard for, that they've been betrayed by both sides of the aisle. That's the problem I have with all of this. Fix the damn problem. And don't give me excuses about political capital because the left gets what they want eventually. See, this is the thing. Again, with conservatives, it's so frustrating to me. Conservatives just are maddening to me because they like to talk in fairy tales. They like to talk in theory. They like to talk in philosophy. And they got a lot of great ideas, but none of them actually ever work out. Because as we've seen, really since the founding, but even more on steroids since the end of World War II, America continues to go to the far left. It goes to the left, the left, the left. It never regulates back to the right. Right? And listen, I know with the election of Donald Trump, there's this temporary euphoria. Oh, we're going to get on MAGA. We're going to take back America. Come on, guys. It's a temporary reprieve. And he's not even all that conservative, let's be honest. Trump's been in office, what, 10 months now? What's he done that's actually conservative? Oh, that's right. That corporate tax cut. That same corporate tax cut that all Republicans passed when they're in power. And listen, I'm not against corporate. Well, I'm not against tax cuts in general. I think the government should keep much less of the people's money. But my point is, notice how the government, first thing it did was appeal to the very oligarchs that want to keep more of their money. See, it's an interesting relation between the oligarchs, the corporations, the oligarchs, and the government. That's the first thing he did. All in the name of freedom, liberty, and economic prosperity. And yet you go down the totem pole. How's that worked out for the middle class who's getting crushed by inflation? You say, well, Frank, Trump's only been there 10 months. He needs more time to fix the issues with inflation. Okay. I'll give him more time. I just don't see what's going to change that right now. We're becoming like Mexico, an upper class oligarchical class and a massive peasant class at the bottom. That's what we're becoming. So tell me, the post-World War II American hegemony, where we say America is the greatest nation in the history of the world. Listen, I love America. It's my country. I was born, raised here. I'm going to die here. I love America. But we also have to be honest about something. How long did that prosperity really last? 20, 30 years after World War II? We get to 71, go off the gold standard, start printing money. How much of the prosperity has been done on debt by the government? We don't want a real economy. And to be honest with you, we can't run a real economy because most Americans don't have the independence financially, economically, and physically, right? We've all been kicked off the land. I've told you this before, right? I'm a big fan of Belloc and Chesterton. They were distributists, right? And regardless of how distributism may have to work out or play out, right? Whether it can or can't, their general ideas of getting people back on the land are right. Because true independence is on the land, where people have the abundance and the resources to raise their families. You wonder why we have dying populations in the West? Start with the banking systems that have monopolized the land, real estate, right? Homes. That's where you start. And the combination of, again, the liberal combination, post-World War II, led by American hegemony of sterilizing women with contraception and abortion, and a financial system that has crushed the ability for people to buy homes and have land and have the resources and the tools able to raise families, has led to dying populations. I live out in the Midwest, and I can't tell you guys how we're being flooded into condominiums. And I live in the place where there's land for miles in each direction. And we're flooding this small town in the Midwest with a bunch of condos because housing is unaffordable because of the usury system. So we force people into condos. How are you supposed to raise families in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath condo? How's that supposed to work? You wonder why people aren't having kids? I mean, this the issue of why people aren't having kids. It's a complicated issue. Don't get me wrong. It's more than that, but it's part of it. Because what the political right has missed is it hasn't just been a Marxist attack on social issues or the culture. It's been a financial attack as well, too. And the right, the conservators, have helped facilitate that attack against the American family with their stupid ideas. So this is where we're at, guys. And I look around me today, I look everywhere around me, and families are being crushed. And the whole thing, you got to put yourself up by your bootstrap and work hard. It ain't working anymore. Well, I know there's deep pockets of America, especially in the cities, the inner cities, that are broken, morally broken, structurally broken, the family's broken, and there's deep dependence, unappreciated dependence on government welfare programs, and that's a problem. That's another problem to talk about, right? What I do know is there's many Americans that are working their asses off, husband and wife, and they're not going anywhere. They're not going anywhere. We say, well, invest in the stock market, invest it in crypto until that house of cards comes down at some point. And listen, I'm an investor, but why do you think the growth of crypto has exploded? Why do you think? And it's mainly a phenomenon of young white males, a disenfranchised group now in America. Because in many ways, crypto gives false aspirations of hope. Because these young men, they can't buy houses, they can't find jobs that where they could start a family, they can't find wives anymore that are marriageable because feminism has destroyed women in so many different ways. If you can't buy a home, you can't start a family. If you can't find a job that buys a home, you can't start a family. And young men have turned to desperate measures. You say crypto is fake money, it's a Ponzi scheme. Yes, but what choice have you given these young men who can't start families anymore? I get it, the relationship issues, marriage, all that stuff, it's complicated. There's cultural issues, but at its most basic level, a man has to be able to get married and provide for his family. And he can't do that. Most young men can't do that anymore. And now the bottom is falling out of the job market, by the way, because of AI. It's only going to get more complex. Again, hoorah, America, with the greatest of all time. Why can't we fix these problems? And I'm being told we can't fix these problems. We're socialist nations and we have to manage the decline. Then what the hell was the point of all of this? What the hell was the point of all of this? Especially post World War II, where we said it was the good war. We beat the bad guys. Well, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe they were the bad guys. But there's a whole hell of a lot more bad guys that have taken over now the entire system. So, I mean, to me, the Aristotelian method, asking questions, That's what I'm doing here. I know they'll have some half-ass philosophical cluster fart of an answer, as to why they believe. But at the end of the day, they can't fix the problem. Everybody has an answer. Everybody has an idea, but nobody actually wants to fix the problem. Nobody does. That's the issue. And this is why, guys, I do this particular series here, the Integralist Chronicles, to share with you why I left conservatism. And in many ways, dropped out of American politics, to be honest. I still follow a little bit, but I am so frustrated with all of this at this point. There's simply no common sense left. We're so morally broken, politically divided, culturally divided, religiously divided in every which way that it's just a shit show. America is a shit show. You go on Twitter, what a hellhole Twitter is, man. Oh my goodness. Don't get me started on, okay, I'm not going to go down that direction. So, to sum it up, Social Security, Medicare, grandma who paid into the system her entire life, her measly $1,500 check is bankrupting the entire nation. That's what I'm being told. Grandma, grandma is bankrupting the nation. Okay. It ain't all the wars, right? Most of them, which were bullshit. It ain't all the corruption in government, the useless spending. No, that has nothing to do with it. Notice whenever a budgetary issue comes up, welfare and food stamps never get threatened to be cut. No, 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 no. Only grandma's $1,500 check who paid into the system. She did her duty, and now she's being made feel guilty for collecting on the money they took from her. It's a damn disgrace. And then we're being told now there's not enough political capital to fix it. Again, all the while, Obamacare and gay marriage was rammed down our throats. Apparently, again, Democrats have political capital to pass two very unpopular issues. Yes, yes, not just unpopular issue, but culturally changing issues. Civilizationally, excuse me, civilizationally changing issues. Somehow they have the political capital for that. But a fiscal budget issue on Social Security that can't be fixed. Are you freaking kidding me? Are you guys retarded? And just again, American politics. Nothing frustrates me more. Nothing. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The Integralist Chronicles. Mm, what this? Volume 28, I believe. I want to thank you for joining me. This is Frank, sign off, frankly speaking. Good night, everybody.